The Galactic Mockery. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Alliance buzzed with excitement. Representatives from various star systems had gathered, eagerly discussing their upcoming battle. For years, they had been watching Earth, observing its technological developments. And now, as tensions grew, they had finally decided to test humanity's strength. At the center of the room, Admiral Kohler of the Zenthuri fleet, an imposing figure with deep blue skin and sharp, glistening eyes, stepped forward. His booming voice echoed throughout the hall. "Humans, these primitives," he scoffed, pointing to the holographic display of Earth's military forces. "Their weapons are outdated relics. The ships they rely on were built centuries ago. We will wipe them from the stars without breaking a sweat." A murmur of agreement swept through the hall. Different species, some with sleek, advanced technologies and others with biological ships, nodded in approval. They had seen Earth's weaponry, ancient nuclear missiles, primitive ballistic systems, and even old fighter jets. To the Galactic Alliance, it was a laughable collection of outdated toys. High Commander Vexus, a slender creature with elongated limbs and shimmering silver scales, chuckled. "Their arrogance is amusing. They cling to these old methods, refusing to evolve. They have no understanding of what true power looks like." Admiral Kohler grinned, his sharp teeth glinting in the light. "Exactly. We shall crush them swiftly. Our armada, equipped with plasma cannons, ion disruptors, and energy shields, will tear through their defenses like paper. By the time they even realize we're attacking, it'll be too late." As the hologram of Earth spun slowly in the center of the room, the Alliance's leaders continued to mock and jeer. Earth's military display, with its seemingly crude ships and ground forces, was projected on a grand scale. To the advanced races of the galaxy, humanity appeared to be stuck in the past, using outdated tactics and ineffective weaponry. But what none of the alien leaders noticed was the quiet figure standing near the back of the room. General Scar, one of the few who had actually studied humanity in detail, remained silent. He had seen something in Earth's history, something the others were too arrogant to recognize. "They've survived wars before," Scar thought to himself, watching the hologram of Earth closely. "Humans have a strange way of adapting, of turning their weaknesses into strengths." But the others didn't share his caution. They were too eager to start the battle. The Alliance leaders were certain of their superiority. They laughed and continued to mock humanity, drawing plans to overwhelm Earth in a single decisive blow. Admiral Kohler, one of the aides, called, bringing the Admiral's attention to a tactical display. "The fleet is ready. Should we proceed with the first wave?" Kohler nodded confidently. "Proceed. Let the humans know their time has come to an end. Soon, their ancient weapons will be nothing but a forgotten memory." As the Galactic Alliance fleet began to mobilize, thousands of advanced ships moved into position, each armed with the latest technologies that their civilizations had to offer. The armada stretched across space, a dark shadow ready to fall upon Earth. Back on Earth, however, there was no panic. Humanity's leaders watched the approaching alien fleet with calm determination. In a hidden command bunker, deep beneath the surface, General Marcus Jackson stood alongside his team. The display in front of them showed the same fleet approaching, but their faces were not filled with fear or worry. "They think we're weak," Jackson said, his voice steady. "They think we haven't learned from our past, but they don't know what's coming." One of the analysts turned to him, adjusting the controls on the screen. "Sir, they've deployed their first wave. They'll be in range within a few hours." While the Galactic Alliance viewed Earth's arsenal as outdated, humanity had been preparing. They had studied the alien technologies and learned from their mistakes in history. Their seemingly old weapons hid secrets that the galaxy would soon discover. As the first wave of alien ships began their descent toward Earth, the mocking voices of the Galactic Alliance echoed across the stars. But soon, those jeers would be silenced. Humanity had always thrived in the face of overwhelming odds, and this time would be no different. The storm was coming, but Earth stood ready. The first strike. The Galactic Alliance's fleet surged forward, sleek and powerful, as their ships approached Earth's orbit. Their confidence radiated across the stars. Admiral Kohler stood proudly at the helm of the Zenthari flagship, his eyes glinting with the satisfaction of an easy victory. "Engage primary weapons," Kohler commanded, his voice filled with certainty. "Let the humans feel the power of the Alliance." The massive armada, with its hundreds of advanced warships, lit up the void of space with an array of deadly plasma beams, ion cannons, and pulse weapons. They unleashed a barrage of firepower that tore through the darkness, heading straight for Earth's defenses. On Earth, alarms blared, and the skies filled with streaks of light as humanity's defenses sprang into action. General Marcus Jackson, standing in the command center deep underground, watched the screen closely. His face remained calm, even as the enemy's firepower rained down. "They're making their move," one of his officers said, his voice tense. "Let them," Jackson replied, leaning forward. "They still don't know what we've been preparing." As the first wave of attacks struck, Earth's surface shields absorbed much of the damage, but even they began to strain under the intensity of the assault. From the perspective of the Galactic Alliance, it was only a matter of time before Earth's defenses crumbled. "Shields at 75%, one of the Earth officers reported. "They're hitting us hard, sir." "Activate the surface response systems," Jackson ordered calmly. "Let's give them something to think about." Across Earth, hidden silos opened, and from deep within the planet, massive anti-orbital cannons began to rise. These ancient weapons, a mix of old and new technology, had been waiting for this moment. The Galactic Alliance had mocked Earth's primitive defenses, but they had no idea what was about to hit them. "Fire at will," Jackson commanded. The ground shook as the cannons roared to life, launching high-velocity projectiles and energy beams into the sky. These weren't just ordinary weapons. They had been designed to counter advanced technology. The shells were wrapped in electromagnetic fields, and the energy pulses disrupted shielding systems. Earth's seemingly outdated arsenal was more sophisticated than the Galactic Alliance had imagined. In space, the Alliance fleet was taken by surprise. The first volley struck several ships in the front line, their shields failing instantly. Plasma reactors exploded, sending debris spinning through the void. "What?" Admiral Kohler's eyes widened as two of the ships next to his flagship were obliterated in a matter of seconds. "What is this?" The Alliance ships scrambled to reposition, but Earth's defensive fire was relentless. More and more of their ships fell as humanity's counterattack intensified. Their initial confidence began to waver. "They've adapted," Commander Vexus hissed, his silver-scaled skin glistening as he observed the battlefield from his own warship. "This isn't what we expected." Admiral Kohler slammed his fist against the console. "Their weapons are supposed to be ancient. How are they piercing our shields?" As Kohler watched, several more Alliance ships were struck by Earth's countermeasures, exploding into fiery wrecks. The Galactic Alliance's technological advantage was rapidly shrinking. "Admiral," one of his officers said in a panicked voice, "they found a way to neutralize our shields. We're taking heavy losses." "Pull back," Kohler growled, reluctantly giving the order. "Regroup and reanalyze the situation." As the Galactic fleet retreated to a safer distance, Kohler's mind raced. How had Earth, with its supposedly outdated weaponry, managed to do this? Something wasn't right. Meanwhile, on Earth, the mood was far more optimistic. In the underground command center, General Jackson allowed himself a small smile. The first strike had been a success, but he knew the fight was far from over. "They'll adapt," Jackson said quietly, looking at the display of the retreating fleet. "But so will we. This is just the beginning." One of the analysts turned to him. "Sir, should we launch the next phase of the plan?" Jackson nodded. "Prepare the supercarrier. It's time to show them what else we've been hiding." As the order went out, deep beneath the ocean, something massive began to stir. An ancient human supercarrier, long hidden from the eyes of the galaxy, slowly came to life. Lights flickered on, engines hummed, and systems that had been dormant for centuries roared back into action. The Galactic Alliance had no idea what was coming next. The unveiling of Earth's supercarrier. The Galactic Alliance regrouped at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, licking their wounds and assessing their losses. Admiral Kohler paced on the command deck of his flagship, the weight of their unexpected failure heavy on his shoulders. Earth, the planet they had dismissed as a backwater with outdated technology, had managed to push them back. It was not just frustrating, it was humiliating. "Admiral, our analysts are still struggling to understand how they neutralized our shields so quickly," a lieutenant reported, his voice tight with anxiety. Kohler waved him off. "It doesn't matter. We'll reconfigure our defenses and strike again." This was just a temporary setback. But even as he said the words, doubt gnawed at the back of his mind. How could a supposedly primitive species like humans have repelled the most advanced fleet in the galaxy? What else were they hiding? He didn't have to wait long to find out. Deep beneath the waves of the Pacific Ocean, the ancient human supercarrier stirred to life. For centuries, it had remained hidden, a relic of a forgotten era of human innovation and ambition. Its massive hull, once thought a relic of war long past, hummed with energy as long-dormant systems rebooted. Lights blinked on across the ship's vast frame, and within its armored walls, powerful weapons and advanced technologies prepared for activation. On the bridge of the supercarrier, Commander Elena Cortez stood with her crew, watching as the systems came online one by one. Cortez, a battle-hardened veteran, had been chosen to command this ancient war machine, and she was more than ready for the task. "Status report," Cortez said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "All systems are operational," one of her officers responded. "Weapons, shields, propulsion. Everything's online. She's ready to move." Cortez nodded, a slight smile on her lips. "Then let's give the Galactic Alliance a proper welcome." As the supercarrier began to rise from the ocean depths, the water above it churned and boiled. The sheer size of the vessel was mind-boggling, larger than any ship the Galactic Alliance had ever encountered. Its sleek, angular design was a testament to human engineering, a mix of both old and new technologies that had been perfected in secret. The supercarrier broke the surface with a roar, sending massive waves in all directions. Its colossal form loomed over the ocean, casting a shadow that seemed to stretch for miles. From the bridge, Cortez could see the galactic fleet hovering just beyond Earth's atmosphere. "They have no idea what's coming," she muttered. The supercarrier's engines roared to life, propelling it into the sky. The ship ascended swiftly, its massive bulk defying gravity with ease. As it pierced the clouds and rose into the vacuum of space, its weapon systems came online. Cannons, missiles, and energy weapons, all designed to counter the most advanced technologies in the galaxy. On the galactic flagship, Admiral Kohler stared in disbelief at the holographic display in front of him. What is that?" one of his officers gasped, pointing to the massive object rising from Earth's surface. Kohler's eyes narrowed. "Magnify the image." The display zoomed in, and the sight of the supercarrier sent a chill down his spine. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Its sheer size dwarfed even the largest vessels in the galactic fleet, and the power readings coming from it were off the charts. "Impossible," Kohler whispered. "How could they have hidden something like this?" The bridge fell into a stunned silence as the supercarrier continued its ascent, looming larger and larger on the display. For the first time since the battle had begun, Kohler felt a twinge of fear. "They're hailing us," an officer said, breaking the silence. Kohler steeled himself. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered, and the image of Commander Cortez appeared before them. Her expression was calm, almost casual, as if she had all the time in the world. "This is Commander Elena Cortez of the Earth supercarrier Invictus," she said, her voice steady. "I suggest you retreat now, before we are forced to demonstrate the full extent of our capabilities. Kohler's hands tightened into fists. "You're bluffing," he spat. "One ship, no matter how large, cannot stand against the combined might of the Galactic Alliance. Humanity's arsenal unleashed." As the wreckage of the destroyed galactic ships drifted in space, Admiral Kohler stood frozen on the command deck of his flagship. The scene unfolding before him was something he had never imagined. The sheer power and precision of the Earth supercarrier, Invictus, had turned what was supposed to be an overwhelming galactic victory into a complete rout. "How is this possible?" Kohler muttered, his voice barely audible. "One ship, just one ship." His second-in-command, Captain Veran, approached cautiously. "Admiral, we need to regroup. Our forces." Kohler spun to face him, eyes wide with disbelief. "We are the Galactic Alliance. We have never faced such humiliation. And yet, this human ship," he pointed at the display showing the towering supercarrier, "this relic has torn us apart." Veran nodded grimly, understanding the severity of their situation. The Alliance had relied on superior technology, sheer numbers, and the assumption that no Deathworlder, least of all humans, could stand against them. That assumption had just cost them dearly. On board the Invictus, Commander Elena Cortez surveyed the battlefield. The galactic ships were disoriented, scrambling to reorganize their ranks, but the damage was already done. Several vessels had been reduced to debris, and those that remained seemed unsure of their next move. Cortez's tactical officer spoke up. "Commander, the enemy fleet is in disarray. We could press the advantage." Cortez tapped her chin thoughtfully, watching the situation unfold. "No, we don't want to annihilate them. Not yet. Let them sweat a little longer." "Should we deploy the next wave of weaponry?" another officer asked, referring to the more advanced, untested systems aboard the Invictus, systems that had been designed specifically to counter the technologies of the Galactic Alliance. Cortez considered for a moment, her eyes narrowing. "Activate the plasma disruptors, but keep them on standby. Let's see how much more they can take before we reveal all our cards." With a nod, her crew swiftly carried out the orders. The plasma disruptors, weapons designed to scramble and bypass the shields of even the most advanced ships, hummed to life. The Invictus was armed to the teeth, and humanity's arsenal was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Meanwhile, on the galactic flagship, panic was beginning to spread. Officers hurriedly exchanged data, trying to understand how their defenses had been compromised so easily. But it wasn't just the physical damage that shook them. It was the psychological impact. The humans, once mocked for their primitive ways, had unleashed a weapon that was far from ancient. Kohler, his pride wounded, clenched his fists. "We can't let them win," he growled. "Prepare to counterattack. Deploy all remaining ships. We'll hit them with everything we have." Veran hesitated. "Admiral, with all due respect, we're outmatched. Perhaps a strategic retreat." "No," Kohler shouted, his frustration boiling over. "We will not retreat. We are the Galactic Alliance. We do not lose to Deathworlders." Veran opened his mouth to protest, but before he could speak, alarms began blaring across the ship. "Incoming fire," a voice shouted from one of the consoles. Kohler turned to the main display, eyes widening in horror as he saw beams of plasma energy lancing through space, headed directly for the fleet. The disruptors fired in a synchronized pattern, slicing through the galactic ship's shields like they were made of paper. Explosions rocked the fleet as ship after ship was hit, their defenses rendered useless. Back on the Invictus, the bridge crew watched with quiet satisfaction as their disruptors tore through the galactic fleet. The once mighty armada was now a broken mess, ships drifting aimlessly, some already lost in a cascade of fiery destruction. Cortez leaned back in her chair, her gaze fixed on the carnage. "Looks like their shields weren't as invincible as they thought," she said dryly. "Typical. They rely too much on technology and forget the fundamentals." A tactical officer chimed in. "The remaining ships are pulling back, Commander." Should we pursue? Cortez shook her head. No. Let them retreat. We've made our point. She paused, then added with a smirk, besides, if they have any sense left, they'll be too busy licking their wounds to try this again anytime soon. As the Galactic fleet began its slow, humiliating retreat, Cortez issued one final order. Send a message to their flagship. I want them to know we could have destroyed them completely, but chose not to. Her communications officer nodded, and within seconds, a transmission was sent to the retreating Galactic ships. Admiral Kolar, this is Commander Elena Cortez of the Earth supercarrier Invictus. Consider yourselves lucky. You've just had a taste of humanity's power, and trust me, this is only the beginning. Next time, we won't be so merciful. The retaliation attempt. Admiral Kolar sat in the dimmed command room, his head throbbing from the stinging humiliation of defeat. The Galactic Alliance, for all its technological prowess, had been overpowered by a single human supercarrier. How could it have come to this? His mind raced through the endless streams of reports and analyses, none of which could explain how Earth's so-called outdated weaponry had so thoroughly dismantled the Galactic fleet. I refuse to let this stand, Kolar muttered, his eyes burning with renewed determination. Prepare the fleet for retaliation. Captain Varen, standing nearby, shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, with all due respect, the fleet is in no condition to engage again. We've lost nearly half our ships, and the others are in desperate need of repair. Perhaps we should. No. Kolar slammed his fist down on the command table. We cannot allow humanity to believe they have the upper hand. We'll strike back, and this time, we'll obliterate that ship and teach those Deathworlders their place in the galaxy. Varen sighed, knowing that reasoning with Kolar in this state was futile. Admiral, if I may, if we attack now, without proper planning or recovery, it could be suicide. Kolar's gaze snapped toward Varen, eyes narrowing. Then what do you suggest, Captain? Run with our tails between our legs and wait for them to come after us. Varen stood tall, his voice steady despite the tension. No, sir. We should regroup, reassess their capabilities, and figure out how they bypassed our defenses. Rushing into another battle without understanding their strengths will only lead to more losses. The room fell silent as Kolar mulled over the words. The reality was that they had underestimated the humans. They had dismissed them as Deathworlders, a primitive race from a hostile planet. Now, the consequences of that arrogance were becoming painfully clear. Kolar exhaled, the weight of the situation sinking in. Fine, he said, his voice a low growl. We'll regroup, but I want every ship repaired and battle-ready as soon as possible. And send out probes. Analyze every aspect of that human supercarrier. I want to know how they did this. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth supercarrier Invictus, Commander Elena Cortez stood confidently on the bridge, watching the Galactic fleet limp away in defeat. There was a palpable sense of triumph among her crew, but Cortez knew better than to relax too soon. They'll come back, she said, her voice measured. The Galactic Alliance doesn't take defeat lightly. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Richards, nodded. They're prideful, but they're also smart. They'll adapt and come at us with something new next time. Cortez smiled grimly. Let them try. We still have plenty of surprises in store. The Invictus had been designed not just as a warship, but as a statement, a reminder that humanity, once the underdog, was now a force to be reckoned with. Their ancient-looking weapons were only the tip of the iceberg. The ship held advanced technology the rest of the galaxy had never seen, and Cortez intended to keep that ace up her sleeve until the time was right. Commander, what's our next move? Richards asked, glancing at the tactical display. We continue with our original mission, Cortez said, but keep our defenses up. I don't trust them to stay away for long. On a distant world, deep within the Galactic Alliance's central command, High Chancellor Varex watched the unfolding events with growing concern. The battle had been broadcast across the galaxy, and the news was spreading fast. The once invincible Galactic Alliance had been brought to its knees by a human ship. Rumors were already circulating, and dissent among member planets was beginning to bubble to the surface. How did this happen? Verex murmured to herself, staring at the images of the destroyed galactic fleet. How did we misjudge them so badly? A council member stepped forward. Chancellor, the humans were underestimated. Their technology appears to be more advanced than we originally thought. We must proceed with caution. Verex shook her head. Caution? No. We need to act swiftly, before the rest of the galaxy sees us as weak. If we don't crush the humans now, it will embolden others to challenge us. But, Chancellor, another council member interjected, the fleet is in shambles. It will take time to recover. Verex's eyes flashed with frustration. We don't have time. Every moment we delay, humanity gains more power, more influence. I want a task force assembled immediately, our best ships, our best commanders. We will take the fight directly to Earth. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, but they knew better than to argue with the High Chancellor. Prepare the fleet, Verex ordered, her voice cold and resolute. Humanity will learn its place in the galaxy, or we will make sure they have no place at all. Back on the Invictus, Cortez stood silently as she gazed out at the stars. The Galactic Alliance had been dealt a blow, but she knew the battle was far from over. They would return, stronger and angrier than before. But Cortez wasn't afraid. Humanity had always thrived under pressure, and this was no different. Richards approached her, breaking the silence. Commander, should we prepare for their retaliation? Cortez nodded. Yes, and this time, we'll be ready for whatever they throw at us. With that, the crew of the Invictus got to work, preparing for the inevitable clash that would come. The Galactic Alliance had underestimated humanity once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. And neither would humanity. The battle lines were drawn, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity's secret weapon. As the Invictus continued its journey through space, tension gripped both the human crew and the Galactic Alliance. Admiral Kohler had initiated his retreat, but his next move was already in motion. Ships were being repaired, intelligence was being gathered, and plans were being formulated. The defeat had stung, but it had also fueled his desire to strike back with more ferocity. But Kohler had no idea what humanity still had up its sleeve. Commander Elena Cortez stood in the war room of the Invictus, studying the latest reports on the Galactic Alliance's movements. Her brow furrowed as she noted the increased activity in the nearby systems. It was clear that they were regrouping, preparing for another strike. They're not wasting any time, Lieutenant Richards commented as he entered the room. No, they're not, Cortez replied, her eyes never leaving the holographic map in front of her. But neither are we. We've got something they aren't expecting. Richards tilted his head, curiosity flashing in his eyes. You're talking about the weapon, aren't you? Cortez gave a small nod. Yes, but it's more than just a weapon. It's a revolution in warfare. It's the culmination of everything humanity has worked toward, everything we've endured. When they see it, they'll understand why we're not a force to be trifled with. Richards let out a low whistle. So the rumors are true. It's ready. It's been ready for a while, Cortez said with a smirk. We just didn't need to use it yet. Back on the Galactic Alliance's Central Command, High Chancellor Verex was growing impatient. The task force she had ordered was nearing completion, but the reports on humanity's strength still concerned her. It wasn't just the advanced weaponry or the tactics they had employed. It was their unpredictability, their resilience. Earth, despite being a death world, had fostered a civilization that thrived in adversity. That made them dangerous. They are too unpredictable, she muttered, her gaze fixed on the screen in front of her, which displayed a rotating image of the Invictus. Chancellor, one of her advisors spoke up cautiously. There is something else we've uncovered. It appears the humans have been experimenting with something unusual. A new form of energy source, something beyond our understanding. Meanwhile, deep within the Invictus, In a restricted section known only to the highest-ranking officers, an engineering team worked tirelessly. Inside a heavily shielded chamber, a massive structure pulsed with a faint, glowing light. It looked almost organic, like a living creature intertwined with the ship's systems. Cortez entered the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hum of machinery. She approached the chief engineer, Dr. Marissa Grayson, who stood near the glowing core. "How's it coming?" Cortez asked, her voice hushed. Grayson looked up from her work, her face illuminated by the glow. "It's stable. We've run all the simulations, and the results are better than we expected. When we deploy this, they won't know what hit them." Cortez's eyes gleamed with determination. "Good. The Galactic Alliance is preparing for another fight. We're going to give them one, but on our terms." Grayson nodded. "This weapon, it's unlike anything they've ever seen. It adapts, evolves. Every time they think they've figured it out, it changes. We designed it that way, to keep them on the back foot." Cortez's smile was grim. "They think they're the masters of the galaxy, but they've never faced a species like us. We were forged in the fires of a death world. Everything we've endured, everything we've learned, has led us to this moment." Grayson stepped back from the core, her face filled with a mixture of pride and awe. "It's not just a weapon, Commander. It's a symbol. It shows them that we don't just survive. We evolve. We adapt. We thrive. And that's what makes us dangerous," Cortez said, her voice hard. "Let's get it ready. We're going to make sure they never underestimate humanity again." As the Galactic Alliance fleet prepared for their next confrontation, the tension in the air was palpable. They had thrown everything they had at the humans, and yet the Deathworlders had emerged victorious. Now, they were regrouping, armed with knowledge and experience, ready to crush Earth once and for all. But they still had no idea what was waiting for them. Commander Cortez stood on the bridge of the Invictus, her gaze steady as she watched the stars drift by. The weapon was ready. Humanity was ready. This next battle wouldn't just be about survival. It would be about showing the galaxy that Earth was not to be trifled with. "We'll meet them head-on," Cortez said, her voice calm yet filled with determination. "And when the dust settles, they'll remember the day they challenged humanity." Richards looked at her, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "And the day we showed them just how wrong they were." With that, the crew of the Invictus steeled themselves for what was to come. The Galactic Alliance had underestimated humanity once, and now they were about to pay the price. The Invictus moved forward, carrying with it the hopes of Earth and the terrifying power of a weapon that could reshape the galaxy. The final showdown. The Galactic Alliance's armada filled the void of space like a menacing cloud, hundreds of ships poised for battle. Their formations were perfect, their weaponry gleaming in the cold darkness of space. They had regrouped, more prepared than ever, and they were certain this would be the decisive strike to end the human resistance once and for all. Admiral Kohler, standing aboard his flagship, wore a grim expression. He had reviewed all the intelligence they had gathered on humanity's mysterious new weapon, but nothing had fully explained its nature. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered, and that fact both intrigued and unsettled him. The Galactic Alliance had to neutralize it, whatever it was, before it could turn the tide in humanity's favor permanently. "Prepare to engage," Kohler ordered, his voice filled with determination. "This time, we leave nothing to chance." On board the Invictus, Commander Elena Cortez stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the sea of enemy ships ahead. The Galactic Alliance had come in full force, just as they had expected. But this time, the humans had an ace up their sleeve. "All systems ready?" she asked. "Weapon systems fully operational, Commander," Dr. Marissa Grayson replied, standing by her side. "The core is stable, and we've tested its adaptability under simulated conditions. This will be the first real test." Cortez gave a nod, her face set in determination. "Good. It's time we showed them what they're really up against." The weapon they had worked so hard to develop, a living fusion of organic and mechanical technology, was unlike any conventional firepower. It was a dynamic, evolving system that would change its tactics with every move the enemy made. It had been designed specifically to exploit the rigid strategies of the Galactic Alliance, to outthink their static formations and overwhelm their outdated tactics. "Engage the core," Cortez commanded. Grayson pressed a series of buttons, and the ship seemed to hum with newfound energy. The weapon, deep within the heart of the Invictus, came to life, pulsing with raw power. On the surface, it looked like any other superweapon, but in reality, it was something far more dangerous. It was adaptable. It was alive. As the battle began, the Galactic Alliance opened fire first, unleashing a barrage of plasma and energy beams towards the Invictus. The humans responded, but this time, their counterattack wasn't just stronger, it was smarter. The ship's new weapon analyzed the enemy's attacks in real time, adjusting the energy shields and countermeasures faster than the enemy could adapt. Inside the Galactic Alliance command ship, Admiral Kohler watched in disbelief as the Invictus weaved through their carefully laid formations, deflecting attacks with uncanny precision. It was as though the human ship knew what they were going to do before they did. "Impossible," Kohler muttered. "How can they be outmaneuvering us like this?" "Admiral, the human ship is adapting to our movements," an officer called out in alarm. "Every time we shift tactics, they change theirs faster than we can adjust." Kohler gritted his teeth. "Increase the firepower. We need to overwhelm them." The Alliance ships fired again, but this time the Invictus was ready. The new weapon unleashed its full potential, firing beams of energy that tore through the Alliance ships with surgical precision. Each shot was perfectly aimed, targeting the weak points in the enemy's defenses. The Galactic Alliance fleet, which had once been so confident in its superiority, was now being torn apart by a single human ship. Back on the Invictus, the crew watched in awe as the weapon continued its assault. Lieutenant Richards couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Is this really happening?" he asked, eyes wide as the enemy ships exploded one by one. "It's happening," Cortez replied calmly, her eyes never leaving the battlefield. "And this is just the beginning." The Galactic Alliance ships were retreating, their once impenetrable formation now shattered. But Cortez knew this wasn't over yet. The Alliance had underestimated humanity's resilience before, but they were too proud to admit defeat easily. "Dr. Grayson," Cortez said, turning to the scientist, "what's the status on the core's energy levels?" Grayson checked the readings. "Holding steady. We can keep this up for as long as needed." Cortez nodded. "Good. We're going to press the advantage." Admiral Kohler's hands shook as he gripped the edge of the command console. He had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were dismantling the pride of the Galactic Alliance. "Admiral," one of his officers called out in desperation, "we need to retreat. We can't win this." Kohler slammed his fist down. "No, we will not be humiliated by a Death World species. I will not go down in history as the admiral who ran from humans." He looked out at the battlefield, knowing that the Galactic Alliance's reputation was on the line. But the truth was sinking in fast. The humans had brought a weapon that the galaxy had never seen before, and they had used it with terrifying efficiency. Kohler's face darkened as he made the toughest decision of his career. "All ships, retreat," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "Fall back to the outer sectors." The command was given, and the remnants of the Galactic Alliance fleet turned and fled, leaving behind the wreckage of their once mighty armada. As the last of the Alliance ships disappeared from view, the crew of the Invictus erupted in cheers. They had done it. They had faced the full might of the Galactic Alliance and emerged victorious. Cortez, however, remained calm as she looked out at the battlefield. The victory was sweet, but she knew this wasn't the end. The Galactic Alliance would regroup. They always did. But now, humanity had proven that they weren't to be underestimated. They had shown the galaxy that they could not only survive, but that they could triumph. "Let them regroup," Cortez said quietly. "We'll be ready." Richards, standing next to her, grinned. "They'll never see us the same way again." "No," Cortez agreed, her eyes gleaming with determination. "They won't." And with that, the Invictus turned, leaving behind the remnants of the battlefield as it sped off into the stars, ready for whatever came next. Humanity had faced the galaxy's finest, and won.